Good afternoon, alien enthusiasts, and welcome to another Angry Alien Bulletin. Once again, 3i Atlas in the news, and it just doesn't seem to be calming down. It continues to throw us one strange curveball after another, doing things that a comet simply should not be doing. Granted, there are ways that comets can do the things that we're seeing from 3i Atlas, but it's a lot more dynamic than it should be. To give you some examples, what I've been talking about most frequently as of late is the non-gravitational acceleration, or NGA. In other words, an adjustment to its trajectory that cannot be accounted for by gravity alone. The sun's gravity, the gravitational effects of planets on it, that sort of thing. Also, a gravitational slingshot as it goes by the sun, the sorts of things that our probes use to increase their velocity. They do sometimes multiple slingshots of the same planet to increase their speed, but the NGA that we have observed from 3i Atlas is additional acceleration on top of all of that, something that cannot be accounted for with gravity. And again, as I mentioned a number of times in the past, NGA happens with comets because they have this explosive outgassing, ice turning suddenly to gas, to this steam, also carbon dioxide, dry ice, as it is also known, exploding because of solar heating, that sort of thing. When you have those sorts of outgassing events, you can have non-gravitational acceleration. Thing of it is, though, you don't get nearly as much NGA as this object has been displaying. We're talking hundreds or even thousands of times more NGA than we have ever observed with a conventional comet. And now we have an anti-tail and what appears to be not a conventional tail, but instead jets heading away from the sun. So we have this complex multiple jet setup that's happening with 3i Atlas that didn't appear to be there before, and now all of a sudden there it is. And once again, even though this is the sort of thing a comet can do, there's no way it can do it as violently and in a manner that creates such an extensive system of gas jets as we are seeing from the object right now. Again, 3i Atlas demonstrating a capability far beyond what it should be able to do as a regular comet. And then finally, what nobody is talking about right now, simply because I don't think anybody else has noticed this, I think I know where 3i Atlas might be going. And in addition to that, I think I also know why. All of this and more coming at you on The Angry Astronaut right now. Okay, so topic one, what have we seen from 3i Atlas lately? We've already talked about anti-tails, or really what they are, these powerful jets, either of natural outgassing or perhaps some sort of propulsion system. And with the new discoveries that we made today, it's starting to look a lot more like an artificial propulsion system than natural outgassing. But in addition to that, now we are seeing this very obvious jet of material away from the sun as well as towards the sun. And interestingly enough, if we look at the sun as just being incidental to all of this, in other words, which direction were these jets headed before perihelion versus after perihelion? And interestingly enough, really when it comes down to it, these jets are going in the same direction as they did before. The difference is, of course, is now that it's after perihelion, and now that 3i Atlas is heading away from the sun, the more prominent jets, the more powerful ones, are heading away from the sun, whereas before they're heading towards the sun. But really, it's almost kind of like looking at a mirror image of what we were looking at prior to perihelion. But in addition to that, we also have some very obvious and prominent jets heading towards the sun. And even though theoretically this could be explained with natural outgassing, when it comes right down to it, it just can't. And just to be clear, this story is evolving as I'm recording this. Yet another article was released by Avi Loeb just a couple of minutes ago. So let's go ahead and start out with the discovery that was made this morning. A magnificent large-scale image of the interstellar object 3I Atlas was reported by astronomers Frank Niebling and Michael Buchner. The stacked image contains a series of 5 exposures, each lasting 3 minutes, from 2 different telescopes. The image shows 2 anti-tail jets out to 10 arc minutes towards the sun, accompanied by a longer collimated jet extended away from the sun and out to an angular separation of 30 arc minutes, which is roughly the diameter of the full moon. That's in our sky. But given the distance the 3I Atlas is from Earth, this image is absolutely huge, and so are these formations. 3I Atlas is 326 million kilometers away from Earth, so these angular extents correspond to spatial sizes of 950,000 kilometers for the sunward anti-tail jets and 2.85 million kilometers for the tail jet away from the sun. This enormous spatial scale is 3 orders of magnitude larger than the scale of this glowing halo around 3I Atlas that the Hubble Space Telescope captured on July 21st of 2025. Something extremely dynamic is happening with 3I Atlas right now, and Avi Loeb, in an article that he just released a few minutes ago, is theorizing that 3I Atlas may have disintegrated. And if it hasn't, then it's almost certainly an artificial object. Let me try to explain. This multi-jet structure constitutes a remarkable target for future observations, obviously, but as of right now, for a natural comet, the outflow velocity of jets from explosive outgassing is expected to be about 0.4 kilometers per second. In order for the jets to extend over these observed scales, they should have been ejected for time scales of 3 months for the tail and 1 month for the anti-tail. And of course, we saw no evidence of these jets existing prior to perihelion, which means conventional outgassing absolutely should not have been able to form either the tail or the anti-tail. And given that the anti-tail jets are only stopped at a distance of about 1 million kilometers, implies that their ram pressure exceeds that of the solar wind out to that distance. Now, the solar wind is flowing at a speed of 400 kilometers per second, which is 1,000 times larger than the outflow speed from a natural comet. And since ram pressure scales as speed squared, this means that the outermost mass density in the anti-tail is 1,000,000 times bigger than the solar wind, or a few proton masses per cubic centimeter. The outermost mass density of this jet gives a mass flux of 2 million kilograms per second per million kilometers square, and summing over an area of about 10 million kilometers squared for the entire anti-tail, this yields a mass loss rate of 50 billion tons per month, which is far more mass than the entire object should contain. So if that is indeed the case, what we might be seeing is all the debris of the entire object disintegrated as a result of its close approach to the sun. But once again, that doesn't seem to be what we're looking at, because there appears to be an object with a tight, well-formed coma remaining in spite of all of these crazy tails and anti-tails. So what can this possibly mean? For one thing, if 3I Atlas is still intact after all of this, then it must be utterly huge, at least 10 kilometers in diameter, if not even bigger. And we are really starting to push the boundaries of what's reasonable for an interstellar object. Given the total mass mass of these types of objects throughout the galaxy, we should only encounter something this big once every 10,000 years, and probably even less frequently than that. And then in addition to that, you're combining it with the very low chance that this object just happened to encounter our solar system on a trajectory that adheres to the plane of the ecliptic, and also all of the close approaches to the various planets in the solar system, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, and you get a chance of 1 in 100 million for 3I Atlas to originate at random as a natural comet from interstellar space. If, however, we consider the possibility that the jets emanating from 3I Atlas are associated with technological thrusters, then the required mass loss can be 1 to 2 orders of magnitude smaller with human-made chemical jets, because chemical rockets are propelled by an exhaust speed of 3 to 5 kilometers per second, which is 10 times larger than the maximum ejection speed of volatiles sublimated by sunlight from cometary surfaces. And ion thrusters reach an even higher ejection speed of 10 to 50 kilometers per second. Furthermore, alien technology might employ thrusters with yet even higher speeds, reducing required mass loss by more than 2 orders of magnitude and making the required fuel loss less than 1% of the mass of the spacecraft. So, given these considerations, is 3I Atlas of natural or technological order? Well, I think that we're starting to see where Avi Loeb is starting to lean right now. But once again, did 3I Atlas just disintegrate? Given that we're looking at a mass flux of 5 billion tons per month per area of 1 million kilometers on a side, that means that 3I Atlas, given what we're looking at right now, must have lost its entire mass. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then in addition to that, if we look at the amount of damage that this kind of sublimation would do to a comet, say 600 joules per gram worth of energy is how much each gram of sublimation creates. And then water ice is about 2,835 joules per gram. There's a lot of damage that comets take during sublimation. That would mean 5 billion tons worth of mostly CO2 during the perihelion passage of a month. That means that 3I Atlas must have sustained at least 3 times 10 to the 18th power joules worth of energy to it. That much energy subjecting enormous amounts of damage to 3I Atlas, meaning that any comet probably would not have survived something like this. It should have been blasted apart. But has 3I Atlas been blasted apart? Well, if it has, and we just haven't seen it yet, over time, gravitational tides should eventually pull the various fragments of this object apart. But if it doesn't, we are almost certainly looking at something that isn't a normal comet in any event, and very possibly is an artificial object propelled by artificial means. Okay, so there's our mysterious development with these tails, anti-tails, outgassing jets, whatever you want to call them. Again, looking a lot more like artificial propulsion than natural outgassing, just entirely too dynamic and far too widespread, especially given the fact that they seem to have just abruptly appeared out of nowhere. Just doesn't seem possible with natural processes, but it goes even deeper than that. And in order for you to understand the significance of where 3I Atlas is headed, where its next destination might be, we need to go back in time to around the time of the Renaissance here on our planet, where an entire solar system vanished in the space of just a few years. This was a young solar system known as TYC 8241-2652-1, as it appeared about 20 years ago. It was an evolving solar system like any other, with a protoplanetary disk of quadrillions of tons of material that would eventually evolve into planets, asteroids, and a solar system very much like ours, considering that this star is also very much like our sun. And then a few years later, this is what TYC 8241-2652 looked like. The entire protoplanetary disk vanished in the space of a few years. I have talked about this solar system a number of times in the past, but now something very significant has happened as far as this solar system is concerned. Not with the solar system itself, but its relationship with 3I Atlas. First of all, is there any natural explanation that astronomers have ever been able to come up with as to where all of this material might have vanished to? And to give you an impression of just how much matter we are talking about here, at least 10 to the 19th power metric tons worth of mass disappeared, or 10 million trillion tons of mass. An unprecedented event. Nothing even close to this has ever happened in the history of astronomy. And it wasn't something like a black hole or another star passing through the system. Something like that would have created enormous bursts of gamma radiation as the mass was sucked into a black hole, or we definitely would have noticed another star passing through this solar system. But what if it was something else? What if it was something artificial? Well, what you're watching right now is a concept that I've been thinking about for some time. A machine civilization in need of a lot of mass. And why does it need this much mass? Well, because it wants to produce either duplicates of itself or probe ships to dispatch to every single solar system throughout the galaxy. So it consumes all of the mass in the solar system by means of an enormous cloud of nanomachines, and then converts this mass into enormous numbers of probe vessels, perhaps very similar to 3I Atlas. But all this seems quite far-fetched. What sort of connection does this strange event, hundreds of light years away from our planet, have with 3I Atlas? I mean, we're talking nearly 500 light years away, meaning that this event took place at the time of the European Renaissance, whereas 3I Atlas is passing through our solar system right now. And in addition to that, given the speed that we're observing from 3I Atlas, it would take it millions of years to traverse the distance between ourselves and this faraway star. Well, what if a similar event had taken place elsewhere in the galaxy? 3I Atlas was one of the probe ships created by it, and now it is moving to rendezvous with the mothership, with its original creator. Once again, this may sound very far-fetched to you until you realize that 3I Atlas is making a beeline for TYC 8241-2652-1. It is almost precisely on a course that's taking it to the patch of sky that contains this star. It originated from the galactic core, or it seems to be coming from that direction in the constellation of Sagittarius, where the galactic core is located, and this particular star is exactly on the opposite side of our solar system. And after the close approach that 3I Atlas just made to our sun, after perihelion, 3I Atlas is on a trajectory that's going to take it to this exact patch of sky. The odds of that happening purely by chance are absolutely mind-boggling. We're talking at least 60,000 to 1 that 3I Atlas would head to this particular region purely by chance, on top of all the other unlikely coincidences that we have seen with this object. Perhaps the greatest mystery in our entire galaxy, an event that has no possible natural explanation, at least no explanation that we are aware of as of right now, with all of the phenomena that we have observed throughout the universe. Nothing that we know of could make this much matter vanish in just a few years. But that, for some reason, is where 3I Atlas is headed. Now, of course, a lot of you, I'm sure, are thinking at this point that both this star and our sun are in motion in the galaxy, so setting a course for this exact patch of sky is not going to lead to an intercept. That's true. There would have to be multiple adjustments made during the journey. Overall, a total of 20 kilometers per second relative to 3I Atlas's current course, which would require, of course, a lot of propellant or perhaps more gravitational flybys similar to the one that it just executed with our sun. That is something that we actually did with Voyager. We carried out multiple gravity assists with Voyager 1 to generate a 17 kilometer per second adjustment to speed and trajectory in order for it to carry out the various planetary assists that it needed to intercept Jupiter and Saturn. And of course, Voyager 2 also intercepted Uranus and Neptune. All of that being the case, the very same thing might be happening with 3I Atlas, and it might have future maneuvers to carry out with other stars and other planets as time goes on. But I find it an incredible coincidence and very significant that after its close approach with our sun, 3I Atlas just happens to be heading to this mysterious solar system. In my mind, there's no such thing as a coincidence that's that unlikely. So once again, a completely unlikely, just an unbelievable coincidence. And in this case, on a huge level, because in the case of, say, the WOW signal, the coincidence of 3I Atlas seeming to come from roughly the same direction as the WOW signal, still a few degrees of separation between those two events. As far as this object is concerned, and I'm not going to try to remember what its numerical classification is, but it's right here. There's no way my old brain can remember all of that. But as far as this mysterious system is concerned, 3I Atlas just happens to be heading to exactly the same patch of sky as we pointed out in the video. Almost precisely the same patch of sky. And given the fact that the motion of this star and the motion of the sun is of course going to change the relative location of both bodies, there's going to have to be some trajectory adjustments over time if 3I Atlas wants to intercept this location anyway. But what an incredible coincidence. By the way, I don't think it's a coincidence at all that one of the most mysterious objects that we've ever observed in our solar system is heading towards an unsolved mystery in the galaxy. There are a number of mysteries that we have discovered throughout our galaxy with some theoretical natural explanations, but as we saw in the video, with this vanishing solar system, we have none. There is nothing in nature that can cause an entire inner solar system's worth of material, several Earths worth of mass, planet after planet worth of mass here to just vanish in the space of a few years, even a black hole. Other sorts of things that might be able to suck up that much matter. We've seen no evidence of anything like that being there. That kind of dramatic event would have left some very obvious telltale signs. And of course, we saw nothing. And then what do we have but this mysterious object, 3I Atlas, heading to that precise patch of sky? I don't think there's a coincidence at all here, and I think there may be a direct connection between the technology that made this solar system vanish 5 centuries ago and the technology that's causing this mysterious object to pass through our solar system, heading for that particular region of our Milky Way galaxy. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also please consider supporting this channel either on Patreon or by picking up one of these fantastic 3-Eye Atlas t-shirts. We're going to have them available for about another week to maybe 10 days. Not sure when the store is going to be closing. Depends on demand, and also depends on the available stock that we have. But all that being the case, all the details are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, stay angry about space.